Hello, and welcome to the Sparta Group podcast. We aim to provide you with up-to-date interviews and debate with opinion leaders in the health, well-being, rehabilitation and mental health space, from our studio or from conferences.
Hello, my name is Steve Bennett from Sparta. Welcome to the latest in our question and answer sessions with Dr. Sandi Mann, Senior Psychology Lecturer at the University of Central Lancashire, expert workplace consultant, author of several books on psychology and human potential, who runs her own private clinic and is clinical psychology lead for Sparta Health. Hello again, Sandi.
Hello there, Steve. How are you today?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Very excited to get chatting with you again and asking more questions about the things that affect us.
Do you find that you start thinking about things we've talked about? Because I do, and I kind of walk away and think, oh, yeah, that was interesting that Steve said, and you mull it over the rest of the day.
What I love, I've been fascinated in all of these subjects for many years. As you're aware, I put my own project together in the form of a book called The Truth Will Set You Free. It's all about happiness, and it was all about how did we get to where we are now, and how can we get to where we want to be? And it was more a selfish thing, really. It was for myself, but I found that people wanted to see it, so I've given it away. I haven't even sold it. But going back to what you said, yeah, what I love is hearing your input, because my input is purely from my research and my findings, which is a layman's terms, if you like. And it's great to actually hear the professional's view.
Yeah, what I like is the fact that your experiences, and you've had a very interesting life, but they resonate with the theory, which is always good because, I never wanted to be an ivory tower academic that just sits there spouting out theory that has no relevance to people. So if it's relevant to people, then it's real and it brings purpose to it and meaning. And I think that's kind of what you want to be talking about today, don't you? That, the pursuit of meaning and happiness, and what is it all about?
That's it. Well, the first subject that I've written down was an actual section heading in my book. When it's all about how did I get here? I wanted to know how I'd arrived at this stage in my life mentally, the thought processes that I got. Something that I've written down here, excuse me reading this bit out because I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Go ahead, yeah.
How much of our mental state is governed by the things that we've been conditioned to believe and the things that we've been programmed to accept as normal. I think it was written by a chap called Erik Erikson. I don't know if you did any research into him. He wrote things like between birth and 5 years old, we receive 50% of our emotional programming. And between 5 and 8, we receive another 30% of our emotional programming. And between 8 and 18, a further 15% of our emotional programming is received, which means that by the time we've got to 18, we're 95% programmed and conditioned into the way we think and believe. Well, my big question from all of that is, how do you guide someone to change their conditioning or programming if a particular belief or view no longer serves them?
Really, really good question. Really interesting. I'm glad you added up the percentages then, because I was getting to 18 and I was trying to work it out. I thought, So, it is really interesting. And it's no coincidence that I called my private clinic the Mind Training Clinic, because I thought that you're absolutely right. This is about retraining your mind. You can call it therapy, you can call it whatever you want, but at the end of the day, it's about retraining all of that conditioning, all of those values and beliefs and all those systems that we have in place that have been building up throughout our childhood and youth. So that's really what therapy is. It's retraining the way you're thinking, especially with the therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy, which you've probably come across, Steve, which is really all about changing the way you think. So in answer to your question, it is very possible. We are the products of our upbringing so much, we really are. And we have to take the good and bad with that. And people come to me and say, oh, I've got this from my father. Or actually, I have the other way around. I have a lot of adults really worried that they're going to give their own peculiarities, whatever, to their kids.
Yes.
But I say, yeah, you might, but you're also giving them a lot of good stuff as well. So it swings and roundabouts. We're going to get the good stuff and the bad stuff, or the unhelpful stuff and the helpful stuff. But we can do something about it. We can retrain our minds. It does take effort. There's no magic fix. There's no magic wand, magic bullet. You have to work at it. And the best way to do that is with cognitive work, which is changing your thinking styles, your thinking patterns. We often slip into these unhelpful thinking patterns, unhelpful thinking styles. And it's not just because of our parents or the things that they've said. It's not their fault, as it were. Some of it is the result of things that have happened to us that are nothing to do with our upbringing, nothing to do with our parents or anything like that. So, you know, you get somebody who at the age of 30, 40, 50 has very low self-esteem, and you dig a little bit and say, you know, well, what was your childhood like? Fine, perfect, fantastic. You know, they didn't have parents that locked them in cupboards or told them that they were ugly all the time, anything like that. But you trace it back. They went to school, they were bullied, or they had a particular friend that was a frenemy and kept putting them down, or they had a teacher that was a little bit nasty. It could be something quite innocuous. But if you build experience after experience, so they had that when they were in primary school, there was something else in high school, and then something happened in university or whatever, and you get that pattern of thinking that becomes more and more entrenched. So it's nobody's fault. It's life, it's experience, it happens. It can be challenged, it can be changed, but it takes effort. It takes consciously recognizing your thinking styles instead of just going through life. You have to consciously catch them, if you like, trap them, catch them, write them down, challenge them, and subtly, gradually, you're able to change them.
From a layman's point of view, the words that are springing to mind there are, you have to be aware that these problems exist. And once you've identified what they are, you have to accept them. You've got to be aware of them and accept them before you can make any changes. One of the subjects that I think is particularly relevant at the moment because of the lockdown and coronavirus is the subject of fear. I think we've talked about this in the recent talk, but I always apply the analogy with the word fear as an acronym. False expectation appears real. And I think that
can I steal that one, Steve?
Yes, please do. Yes, please do. False expectations appearing real. And I always look at things and I think, am I expecting something here? And am I creating a fear for something that really there's no evidence to support it at the moment? You know, and until there is evidence staring you in the face or looming towards you, perhaps that fear is unreasonable. Now, that's what I'm getting at, I suppose, with programming and with conditioning. We're brought up to almost to the age of 18, we're conditioned to believe that we should be fearful of this, we should be expecting of this. I think we spend most of our lives after the age of 18 re-examining those conditionings and those programmings to say, how is that affecting me? Is that serving me now? Because if it isn't, I need to change it. Now, I've done it in a very layman's way, I suppose. I've done lots of writing. Obviously, I write the thing down. I write the problem down, and I say, "Am I still servant to that problem, or should I be its master now?" And I decide, right, I don't like that. No longer serves me. Get rid of it. And now it might be simplistic, and I'm not convinced it's always worked for me. And I just wonder if there are other, obviously, with, as you say, with cognitive therapy. Is there a stronger way of actually inducing the right result from the patient, from the person? I mean, one of the things I noticed was that you are a clinical hypnotherapist.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. I'm not a clinical hypnotherapist. I think that's a sort of a title. I've studied hypnosis, but hypnosis is an interesting one because it doesn't have enough body of evidence for it to be very effective. The reason I studied hypnosis was because people were asking for it. But hypnosis is really a very deep state of relaxation. That's all it really is. But as an actual technique, it isn't nice guidelines. It isn't something that you would choose to use in a clinic because it's not got enough body of evidence. So the therapies that I choose first are always going to be those that the NHS use. So you're going to do CBT, maybe EMDR. The hypnosis is just a deeper state of relaxation, but I don't hypnotize people, no.
It seems to me that again, it's an observation whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. A lot of it is drawing out from the person or from the individual what the issues are by in-depth questioning. And when somebody's asked a question, it naturally makes you think of, well, actually, you're thinking of this question or this subject in a different way that perhaps you hadn't considered it previously. And sometimes the answer, the light bulb switches on and you know that you need to make that change. But then it's the exercise of making that change, isn't it? That's where you come in. So.
Yeah, so sometimes that's why it's called cognitive behavioral therapy, because sometimes you change the behavior and then the cognitions and the emotions follow. And sometimes you need to change the cognitions to change the behavior. But I think what you're asking is, what sort of techniques do we have as professionals to facilitate that and stimulate that change and that change of thinking? And, we do have a whole range of different tools. We have behavioral experiments, we have diaries and journals, we have things like responsibility pies and court case evidencing, and, lots of different techniques that are all designed to catch the thoughts and challenge them. And I think it's really important to point out that it's not necessarily that your thoughts might be wrong. So, for example, I might have a client and they say, oh, I'm no good at this and I'm no good at that. They might not be, that's not for me to say. Cognitive behavioral therapy isn't to get them to say, oh yeah, I am actually. If I was to do this about my singing ability, Steve, I don't know what you're like in the singing department. I'm pretty rubbish and I know it. But if I went to a CBT therapist and said, oh, I'm terrible at singing, it's not their job to say, now, come on now, Sandi, I'm sure you are. Let's look at the evidence for this and let's try and persuade you that you are. That's not what it's about. But if I was to say, I'm terrible at everything and I'm a failure and I'm rubbish, and they'll go, well, okay, give me an example of what you're terrible at. And I go, singing, terrible at singing. First of all, they could challenge that and say, well, okay, what's the evidence that you're terrible at singing? And I'd say, yeah, I'll sing for them. And I'll go, yeah, you're right, you're terrible at singing. Okay. So it's not about saying you're wrong, but it's about saying, well, what does that mean to you? Why does that make you a failure? Why do you have to be good at singing? And it might be, well, actually, everybody in my family is a great singer. This is true, actually, Steve. Everyone in my family is a great singer. I lost the gene there somehow. So that could affect me. As it happens, it's just a bit of a joke. I'm not bothered. Honest, I'm not bothered at all. But it could affect me, and it could really affect my self-esteem. Or imagine that you weren't very good at running or sport, but you come from a very athletic family. Or maybe you used to be an athlete and you're not as good as you were anymore. These are things that could really affect your whole sense of self. So it's about not saying, oh yeah, you are a good singer. It's about saying, what does that mean to you? Let's challenge what that means to you. Is it possible that you can still be successful in life without being good at singing or without being good at sports? So I think what I'm trying to say is, it's not saying these things aren't true. Sometimes they might be true. Somebody may say, I'm rubbish at leading. Maybe they are. Doesn't mean that they can't improve at it. It's all about, what does that mean to you? It's not about saying, oh, it's not true. What does that mean to you? Can it be changed? Is it important to you? Does it make you who you are? Maybe you're not rich enough or good looking enough or this enough or that enough. It's about challenging those things and then saying, well, why is that so important to you? Maybe you can be happy without those things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Prioritizing, isn't it? It's prioritizing. What is the priority of that subject that I'm so concerned about? Where does it sit in my field of priorities in my life?
Exactly. So you get a lot of people who will come with, say, low mood and low self-esteem, and they'll say, I'm not good at anything. I'm rubbish. I'm a waste of space. I'm filling up space on this earth. You get that. It's very distressing. And if you push them, they may have a list of 10 things that they say they're not good at. But if you actually challenge that and get evidence for those 10 things, they might be right about 3 of them or 4, whatever. But actually, when you challenge it, oh, I've got no friends. Nobody likes me. Okay, so who do you mix with? Well, there's Betty and there's Anne and there's this and there's that. And, you challenge them. Well, do they ever ring you? Yeah, they do. Do they ever ask you out for coffee? Yeah, they do, actually. Yeah, maybe I have got friends. And so you're challenging them with the evidence. But there may be 3 of those things that are true. Yeah, maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe I'm not good at that. But here's 5 or 6 things that you are actually good at and you excel at. Why are you focusing only on the negatives? Let's challenge that. Let's try and change your emphasis from only focusing on the negatives to being a bit more realistic, because that will change your whole perception of yourself. So there's lots of stuff involved in challenging and working on things and perceptions, like you say. And one of the things I picked up from what you said as well before was shoulding. You said it a couple of times as an example, not of what you do maybe, but as what people do. And I should do this, I should be this, I should be that. And that's a very particular mindset that can be unhelpful. Who says you should? So it's challenging. As
ever, fascinating. I mean, that was a particular favourite subject of mine. So I'm really, really pleased with your contribution there. I think we'll bring this one to a close now. now because I've got a couple more subjects to talk about before we finish today. So thank you for that.
Fantastic.
And I'll see you next time.
See you
See you next
soon.
time. Bye-bye.
At Sparta Group, we are keen to hear your thoughts about the topics discussed today. So please tweet us at Sparta_health or visit our website for more information and support.